Hi, I'm Bob Kaiser. Today I'm going to show you how to set up and operate your new Kaiser Dragmaster. What we've done is tried to package it pretty much like you'll see it come in on your truck. The tongue will be folded up, the drag bars will be folded up. We've already let those down. Those are real easy and simple. You cut the straps and just let the drag bars down on the ground. The tongue will be tied up probably a little different than what we've got it, but it'll be in this position. What I'm going to do is have Brandon unhook it there and we'll let the tongue down. First thing you want to do is put your jack stand down so that when you let your tongue down it doesn't go clear down on the ground. We'll go ahead and unhook it and we'll let it down. Like that. The next thing we do is hook up our leveling jack. Now make sure that when you hook this up you should have about the same amount of thread showing here that you have here. Do not screw one end out to adjust this. Make sure that you only turn it with this part, which turns the same distance on both of them. What we do is pretty simple. You can just jack your tongue up until that pin lines up. Just pick up on the tongue a little or down. Okay. Make sure you put your keeper keys in. Take the weight off your jack. Put your jack stand up like so. Normally when I operate a drag, I take the jack clear off. I think for one thing it will interfere with your spray pattern. But for right now we'll just leave it on. The next thing is when you go to back your tractor up, you adjust your tongue height with this jack here, just like so. Go both ways with it, whichever way it needs to go. Okay. The next thing we'll do is hook up the hydraulic hoses and the power takeoff shaft on it. You just push that little button in on your power takeoff shaft. Slide that on until it snaps solid. Make sure that you can't pull it back off, just like Brandon just did. You ought to snap that around the drawbar. Show them how it's supposed to be done. The next thing you do is snap your chain around your drawbar. Don't snap it tight. Leave slack in your chain. But that's just to keep your power takeoff shield from turning, which is just a safety precaution. Then we hook up our hydraulic hoses. They've got those marked so your green pair go together. And then your red pair to go together. Always clean the sand and dirt off your hydraulic couplings before you put them in, like Brandon's doing here. Now we should be hooked up, ready to raise and lower the drag. The next thing you do is hook up the hydraulic hoses and the power takeoff shaft on it. You just push that little button in on your power takeoff shaft. Slide that on till it snaps solid. Make sure that you can't pull it back off, just like Brandon just did. The next thing you do is snap your chain around your drawbar. Don't snap it tight. Leave slack in your chain. But that's just to keep your power takeoff shield from turning, which is just a safety precaution. Then we hook up our hydraulic hoses. They've got those marked All right, now we're going to cover one of the real important things to learn about setting your Dragmaster, and that's to get it running level from front to back. That gives you the correct correlation between your front teeth and your profile blade. What you're looking for is that frame to run perfectly level. Now you can do that by standing back and looking at it, seeing if it's level, or you can actually, if your ground is level, you can put a level on the frame and level it that way. But keep in mind that if your ground's not level, that's not going to work. So most of the time you can tell just by looking at the drag back from a distance whether it's running level or not. This should be done with the drag in the ground. I'm going to do it raised up a little bit so you can actually see the frame move as I change this jack. So we'll adjust it by going this way. As you can see, the front's going down. You flip this little lever, pull back. Now you can see the frame's coming back. When you get it level like that, let it down in the ground, pull ahead about 10 feet, get out, make sure it's running level. If it's not, readjust it this way. If the front's running too low, then raise it up just a little bit. If the front's running too high, just go like that. As you can see it, the front goes down. Just keep adjusting it till it looks like that frame's running level. You should be in good shape. Now I think we'll go through the water system on it since we're right up here. What we've got is two spray booms, two individual spray booms. We can use one or two to double the amount of our water. Most of the time you're only going to use one. That's the way it's set up right now. We have to hook, we've got a hose here to hook up. When you're just using one set of nozzles, these two valves will be turned off. Off on these valves is always where the handle sticks away from the valve. On is where the handle is with the valve body. Right now they're turned off, which means that only the back nozzles are going to spray. If we open these two nozzles, then both sets, the front and the back, will spray at the same time, which gives you a pretty large volume of water. One thing I'll cover here right now while we're standing here is the fact that these nozzles are just like we've had for a long time. That's a diaphragm nozzle body, which means they have a rubber diaphragm in them. You screw that black cap off right there, and inside that there's a little black rubber diaphragm. That is a spring-loaded diaphragm, so the water pressure actually pushes that spring back, allows water to flow out the tip. It takes 10 pounds of pressure to open that diaphragm, so you turn your water system on and off with your power takeoff. The minute you shut your power takeoff off in your tractor, you lose pressure. The spring pushes the diaphragm against the opening. The water stops flowing. Now, if you have trouble with a nozzle not shutting off, it drips or doesn't shut clear off, the problem is not in this tip, it's in this diaphragm. What you have to do is open this valve a little ways. It was shut. Loosen the black cap until water runs out of it. Normally that'll flush whatever's in the diaphragm out. What happens is you can get even a big grain of sand gets against the diaphragm. It can't get clear shut, which allows water past it so that's where your drip comes from. So most of the time, just by loosening the cap, letting a little water flow through it, it'll fix the problem. If not, you have to unscrew it, take it off, and clean something out of the diaphragm. If it's real bad, if you've got some trash in your tank, what you normally do is open that valve up, let some water flush through there to flush out anything that's caught in there. Shut your diaphragm or your valve off, screw your cap back on, open your valve, you're ready to spray again. I will caution you, do not over tighten these. They do not have to be very tight. Just finger tighten them like that, that's all they need. The way you adjust the pressure at your nozzles is with this valve right here. This is called a bypass valve. With that handle turned like in that direction in line with the valve, what that does is allow water to bypass your water system, go back into your tank. If you need more pressure, you start to close that valve, and if you do that with your water system running, you'll notice that the farther closed you have this, the more pressure you have here. Now, these are a low pressure tip, so you don't want a lot of pressure there. If you get too much pressure, you're just going to create a fog. They're only meant to spray 15 to 20 psi. So normally, if you're only using one row of booms, you'll probably leave this valve clear open, allowing some of the water back into the tank. If you're using both spray booms, in other words, you'd have both of these handles turned this way, that'll allow water to come from all of your nozzles. Then you might want to close this valve a little bit to get the desired pressure. You can also vary the pressure at your nozzles with your power takeoff speed, which is controlled by your engine speed. But I do not recommend using a lot of pressure to where you just get a lot of fog of water here. That's not the way they're supposed to work. You can get on plenty of water by running those to where they don't have that fog. All right, I'm going to show you how to use your wall nozzle if you get one, or your spray nozzle. I would definitely recommend you buy one of these. They're really good for watering the edges and the corners where you can't get with your spray bar. Pretty inexpensive little tool, and you'll be glad you've got it after you've run your drag a while. You can even wash your walls down if you got walls with it. That's actually made like a fire hose nozzle, where you twist that to open, twist it back to close it. I'm going to show you how to hook it up here. I'm going to hand the nozzle part up to Brandon. What you do is make sure that you shut these two valves, your main supply line and your bypass line. Make sure these handles are pointing out before you disconnect this hose. Disconnect this hose. Put this in here like this. Snap that shut. Now, open this hose here, your main supply line. Do not open that one. Just open your main supply line. Then with your tractor at an idle, start your pump. But before you do that, I would recommend that you open that a little bit to allow some water to flow out of there. This pump pumps a tremendous amount of pressure. You can spray water with this a long ways. So crack that open, have your tractor at an idle. Start your pump, then you can adjust your nozzle to get the desired pattern that you want. When you're ready to quit, shut your power takeoff off, shut that nozzle off, get out, shut this valve, unhook this, hook your cam lock levers back up, open this valve, crack your bypass valve, you're ready to go again. First I'm going to show you how to replace your pins when they wear out. This is a very simple process. What we've got is a tooth that comes up through this piece of tubing, has a small linch pin in it. All we have to do is remove the linch pin, pull the tooth out like that. Put in a new tooth. Put the linch pin back in, you're ready to go. That's probably one of the simplest designs that you'll see in tooth replacement. I'm going to show you here now how to adjust your tooth bar and depth. When you get your new Dragmaster, your teeth will be in the upmost position, which means you've got a lot of tooth that you can wear out even before you have to adjust the bar down to get more good out of your teeth. The way you do that is you remove these 2 1/2-inch bolts. It takes a 3/4 inch wrench. Pull your center pin. You have to do this on both sides. You have to remove these 2 bolts on this side, remove the same 2 on the other side. You also have a linch pin in the center on each side. Pull those pins. Then you have this big adjusting nut here on top, 1 on each side. What you do is start to screw this nut down, which lowers that whole tooth bar. Only do it a small amount on each side at a time. Screw it down 1/2 inch, go around, screw the other one down a 1/2 inch, come back, do the same here. I'd advise you go down about 2 inches at a time until this bolt lines up in another hole. So a 2 inch would be moving it actually 2 holes. You do that on both sides, get your holes lined up, replace these 2 bolts. Make sure you replace your pin that's in the center. Line it up to go in the correct hole. You might have to adjust this a little bit to get that pin lined up, but it's not that hard to do. Get that pin put in a different hole. Replace these bolts, tighten them down. You've got another several months of good use before you have to readjust your pins. Next we'll show you the hydraulic scarifier attachment. That's your ripper shanks here. What you do is operate that from your tractor cab. It operates up and down hydraulically to rip hard packed ground. Not all of you have to do that. Not all of you will have a scarifier attachment. That's an attachment that comes with the drag if you have ground that gets hard packed and you need rippers to dig it up. If you have to dig your ground up, you let your ripper down from your tractor. I recommend not ripping more than 1 to 2 inches deep at a time. You'll find that it actually does a better job, doesn't bring up so many big hard chunks. I've seen a lot of people go in and drop the rippers all the way down, try to rip it in one pass. That's really not the correct way to do it. The correct way is to let your drag down the ground, let your ripper shanks down to where you can tell that they're digging into your hard packed material a little. Get out, dig down, see how deep they're running. Run them an inch to 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches deeper than your teeth are, and run over your arena several times like that. If you need to rip it a little more, let it down a little more, but just don't try to do it all in one pass. Now, the ripper shanks actually have different adjustment holes in them, so you can, if in this, like in this setting, it's not deep enough, all you have to do is pull this pin, let them down into the next hole, just like that. Put your pin back in. That lets them down an extra 2 inches. Normally what we set them in is the second hole from the bottom. That'll rip, say 2 inches deeper than what your your arena is dug up. If you need to go deeper, you just let these down a little more. What we're going to cover is our profile blade. This is what makes our Kaiser Dragmaster and Kaiser Edge so unique from other drags on the market. What we have is a large blade that actually shears off hard packed ground so it loosens 100% of the material. Doesn't leave any ridges in the ground. This blade is also adjustable up and down. I'll have Brandon help me here and we'll show you. You've got 3 pins. Of course, this is a 10-footer. In the 10-footer, you'll have 3 pins in here. And this blade is adjustable in 1/2 inch increments, so you can raise it or lower it a 1/2 inch at a time. Now this does not set the depth of your drag. We'll cover that in a few minutes. What this does is allow us to change the position of this. Just raise it up a little. So you can see this is adjustable up and down. Let's let it back down, Brandon, where we had it. Okay. So you've got 3 pins on each side of a 10-foot that you change if you want to let your blade down, raise it up. The reason for that is we can actually adjust the depth of our front pins different than we do the back. In some cases you might want your front pins to be running just a little deeper in your blade. For instance, in barrel racing you might not want that bottom cut that smooth. You might want just a little ridges on the bottom. In reining, I'll run my blade just a hair deeper than my front teeth. So we've got adjustments to where we can change the front and the back to get the desired depth of both pins and blade the way we want it. I'm going to explain to you how to adjust your drag bars next. This is a real important adjustment. When it comes, your drag bars will be probably adjusted. These pins will probably be in the top hole, and these will be shortened. We've set these now in a position that works pretty well as a starting point. Normally what you want is to be in this bottom hole down here. And they're really easy to adjust. Just take your linch pin out. You can adjust it up and down, just like that. But we found that the bottom hole is a really good starting place, because what you want is you want that pulling pretty straight on your drag bars. If you hook this up too high, it raises the front part of the drag bars too much to where not enough of it touches the ground. Now you don't want it to drag up a lot of dirt in front. You don't want it to drag up big piles of dirt. So that's why you've got these adjustments. You can go up and down here. You can lengthen or shorten this chain. You can lengthen or shorten that one. The most important thing to remember here is let all the pulling be done by your front chains. Do not let the back chains pull. The back chains are only to lift the drag bars up when it comes out of the ground. That's what I find most people do when they have trouble with their drag bars, is they're shortening that chain up so much it's trying to pull it with the back chain. That does not work. It has to pull off the front chain. So when you're going through the ground, this chain should be tight. This one should have just a little slack in it. So this is just a lift when you get done dragging. Okay, what we're going to do now is show you how to adjust the actual depth of your footing material with this large cylinder and adjustment collar and your stop collars. These are your stop collars. There'll be 4 of them attached to these hoses when it comes. What I would recommend as a starting point is the two smaller ones put on the cylinder. And they just snap on like that. And that's your starting point. This adjusts how far the cylinder compresses, which adjusts how deep the drag actually runs. These are starting point adjustments. Your main adjustment is this big red nut right here. As you can see, that nut screws back. That's what actually adjusts your depth. As you adjust this back this way towards the back of the drag, it makes your drag run shallower. As you screw it forward towards the tractor, your drag goes deeper. So after you put these two collars on, let your drag down in the ground. If it's running too deep, raise it back up just a little, screw this nut back about 3 or 4 turns, get in it, try it again. This is a feature that's very unique to the Kaiser Dragmaster, and what sets it so far above the other ones. You have a positive depth control. Every time you get on your drag, it's going to run the same depth unless you adjust this nut. Next thing I'm going to show you is how to level your hydraulic leveling blade. This blade can be adjusted to where it is higher on one side or the other, or it can be adjusted to where it's level. The reason for that is that in your arena, most people will get a slope buildup along the sides. With this, what you can do is adjust one side of this blade up, like so, to where it cuts deeper on the other side. And that's the side you'd want to run against the wall. If you don't, if you leave your blade level as you go around the curve, it'll keep cutting deeper on the inside all the time. So by doing this, by raising this side up, cutting with the other side, it starts to flatten your curve out. So you get that adjusted where you want it. Lock this nut down, and usually that's sufficient to lock it. After you're done cutting your sides off your arena, you just go like that. Let your blade back down. Make sure you get it level now. The best way to do that is take a tape measure, measure from the top of your blade up to this bracket, measure on both sides, get this adjusted even. Screw your lock nut down. Make sure to screw your lock nut down. Go like that, you're ready to go. Pretty much how your drag should look when it's in the ground. This is a good example of how your drag bars should be dragging. You can see the front one just barely touches the ground. The second one starts to drag a little more. They keep dragging a little more the farther back they go. That's pretty much the way they should be set, is just like those are right there. If they drag too much sand, do like I said, just raise this up a hole. That'll make quite a difference. That pulls up on the front. The other thing you'll notice here, we've got the teeth set. Probably we're running about 2.5 inches deep right now. The way to tell is I always get out, dig down, find the bottom of my tooth and see where that's actually running, and do the same thing to the profile blade. Dig down to the bottom of it, see where it's set. That way you can tell exactly how deep you're running. Just a way to measure it. If you want to run a little deeper, remember how I said to adjust your depth. You don't have to change the profile blade, you don't have to change the teeth. Adjust that big red nut in there to run it a little deeper if you want to, or a little shallower. Now I'm going to have Brandon start this up, show you how the hydraulic blade works, how the hydraulic rippers work. Next thing I'm going to cover is maintenance on your pump and your water system. One of the things that you'll find is do not leave water in your pump if you live in a climate where it freezes in the winter. That is a cast iron pump. If you leave water in it, it will freeze and break. So that's something that you want to do if you're going to be using it in the winter time. There's several things you can do. Some people will put a little camper antifreeze in them, run that through them. But if you're not going to use that pump in the winter time, I'd advise you to just take it off. And when we do take them off and store them for any period of time, we usually use straight antifreeze and pour a little antifreeze in that pump. The reason for that is it will keep the inside of the pump from rusting. The way to take it off is you've got 4 bolts underneath here. They're just cap screws. Those unscrew out. You pull your hoses off. Like these hoses have quick couplers on them. That comes off. On your new drag, that one will also have a quick coupler on it. This one doesn't. We've changed that. They'll both have quick couplers to where it makes it real easy to take your pump on and off. The other thing you want to make sure you do if you're not going to use this in the winter time is drain the water out of your nozzle bodies. You do that just like you're cleaning them. Unscrew this cap, let any water in there out that comes out, and then screw your cap back on. Shut the valve on your tank so that no other water can get in here. Any water that freezes in the bottom of your tank won't really be a problem. I think that pretty well covers what you should need to know about how to operate the new Dragmaster. If you've got any questions, we do have a support team there in Indiana that can answer your questions. If they can't, why, they can get a hold of me and I can help you out with it. So thank you very much for purchasing a new Dragmaster. I know you're going to like it.